In a recent development, Niger has asked the United States to withdraw its military presence in the country. This is a significant move, as Niger has housed about 1,000 American troops who play a role in counterterrorism efforts in the region. The Nigerian government, currently led by military leaders, claims the U.S. presence violates their constitution and that the deployment lacked proper authorization. This has thrown U.S. strategy in Africa into disarray, and the U.S. is currently engaged in diplomatic efforts to understand the situation and potentially maintain a presence in Niger. Niger follows other leaders in the Sahel in forging closer ties with Russia after taking power in military coups. Only a year ago, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made his first ever visit to Niger. The West African nation was praised by him as, quote, a model of resilience, a model of democracy, and a model of cooperation. 5 months later, the military overthrew the government in a coup. Niger is now cutting off its military ties with Washington and wants American troops to leave the country. They intend to trail the previous colonial power France, whose soldiers were expelled in December of last year. The announcement was made on Saturday, March 16, by the military leaders of the West African nation following discussions with the Washington team and General Michael E. Langley, the senior U.S. commander in Africa. The action fits with a recent trend of nations in the parched Sahel region, south of the Sahara, severing relations with Western nations. Instead, they are collaborating more with Russia. Several other issues, including whether Niger's military government was getting close to an agreement that would allow Iran access to Niger's enormous uranium reserves, a worry that had previously been reported by the Wall Street Journal, were also met with anxiety from U.S. officials at the meeting. Niger is home to a significant airbase and is a key location for U.S. military activities in the Sahel region of Africa. The United States is concerned about the growth of jihadist violence in the area because local factions in the area have sworn allegiance to extremist groups affiliated with the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. The U.S. military in recent years began operating a major airbase in the Niger city of Agadez, some 920 kilometers from the capital of Niamey, using it for manned and unmanned surveillance flights and other operations. The U.S. has also invested years and hundreds of millions of dollars in training Niger's military. Some of those forces were involved in the July overthrow of Niger's democratically elected president, Mohamed Bazoum. Washington formally declared the military takeover in Niger to be a coup in October, which led to the enactment of laws in the U.S. limiting U.S. military assistance and support to Niger. However, Mali Fee, the chief U.S. envoy to Africa, stated in December that the U.S. would be happy to resume aid and security relations, provided Niger fulfilled specific requirements. The Niger military leader spokesman said the U.S. tone was patronizing and endangered Niger's independence. Following the coup in July, France withdrew its troops from the nation, and the nation terminated its security cooperation with the European Union. Bear in mind that the U.S. military still had some 650 troops working in Niger in December, largely consolidated at a base farther away from Niamey, Niger's capital. The total number of personnel still in the country, including civilians and contractors, is roughly about 1,100. Most of the troops are located at two air bases, Airbase 201 in the Nigerian city of Agadez, on the edge of the Sahara Desert, and Airbase 101 in the capital of Niamey. Airbase 201, a $110 million U.S.-built facility, has been especially pivotal for the counterterrorism mission, conducting drone flights with MQ-9 Reapers since 2019. In the Sahel, the U.S. has also supported local ground troops, including accompanying them on missions. However, such accompanied missions have been scaled back since U.S. troops were terminated in a joint operation in Niger in 2017. U.S. Africa Command on Monday confirmed that American forces are still in Niger, most of whom are concentrated at a drone base on the outskirts of the Sahara Desert city of Agadez. AFRICOM said a separate contingent is at a similar site in Niamey. It's unclear how long the U.S. troops will be able to remain in the country. U.S. officials, in contrast, described last week's talks as direct and frank, providing U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Molly Fee, Assistant Secretary of Defense, Celeste Wallander, and U.S. Africa Command's General Michael Langley, a chance to express Washington's concerns while also hearing from Nigerian military and civilian officials. As mentioned before, some people believe Niger has a potential relationship with Iran. Note that Iran hosted Nigerian Prime Minister Ali Mohammed Lamin Zein in January and voiced a willingness to help Niger cope with international sanctions levied following the July 2023 coup. Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi in September 2023 praised the resistance of some African countries in the face of hegemonic European policies and colonialism. Iran, similar to Russia and Turkey, is willing to strengthen its influence in Africa, where it has been bolstering ties to reduce its isolation. Last year, Iran signed several cooperation pacts with Burkina Faso in energy, urban planning, construction, and higher education. Russia has also moved to expand its influence in Niger and West Africa more broadly, filling the void left by France. Earlier this month, Russia and Niger pledged to boost military cooperation. Increased cooperation between Iran and Niger could benefit both countries. Niger is one of the world's biggest producers of uranium and is responsible for around 5% of global output. Iran needs uranium for its controversial nuclear program. Iran's Africa push may help the Islamic Republic contain the impact of sanctions. The decision for U.S. troops to leave Niger could have several consequences for both Niger and the broader regional dynamics. The U.S. forces' withdrawal from Niger could affect the two nations' long-standing security partnership. They have been assisting Nigerian forces in their counterterrorism endeavors by offering training, support, and intelligence sharing. The potential loss of U.S. forces could make it more difficult for Niger to fight extremist organizations that are active in the area. The alliance of Sahel states cannot solve the insecurities in Niger themselves. In the Sahel, Niger is a vital player in the war against terrorism. The U.S. Army withdrawal could affect the dynamics of regional security by perhaps leaving a security void that extremist organizations could take advantage of. This might have more far-reaching effects on the stability of the Sahel region overall and surrounding nations. The decision by Niger to sever military ties with the U.S. and the countries reportedly developing ties to Russia and Iran raise concerns about possible changes in alliances and partnerships. The Sahel region's tendency to pursue alliances with non-Western countries may have an impact on the presence and influence of Western powers in the area. This decision can also sour diplomatic ties between the two nations. It remains to be seen how this development will impact broader diplomatic engagement and cooperation between Niger and the United States in various areas, including development assistance and governance support. How does all this affect the U.S.? One of the largest drone bases in Africa operated by the U.S. is located in Niger. Singh confirmed in the Monday briefing that the U.S. has not been using its troops and drones at the base for counterterrorism operations since the July coup. Russia is slowly gaining power in a region of the world where the U.S. has a military presence. If the U.S. is forced to withdraw its forces completely, it may lose access to the facility, which it developed wholly on its own. Note that in February, France withdrew its troops from Burkina Faso, which has been under military administration since a 2022 coup. The military government's officials in Mali are being trained by Russian forces. There is a Russian paramilitary group called Wagner. There is also tension between Mali and the U.S. Mali's military officers were sanctioned by the U.S. in July because of their affiliation with Wagner fighters. The latest unfortunate development in Niger could prove particularly embarrassing for U.S. President Joe Biden in an election year. The ending of military ties with the U.S. is seen not only as a continuation of the country's movement away from the West, but also as an assertion of its independence and sovereignty. Niger's decision might not have a huge impact on the security situation in the Sahel region, where various armed groups have been carrying out deadly attacks in recent years. This development will strengthen the resolve of the countries of the Sahel Alliance to ensure that they face the problem of insecurity squarely. When France was pulling out its troops from Niger, many people believed that the U.S. was going to counter the insecurities in the region. But the US now has to leave the country. This has made many people start raising questions. Who now is to take the job? Is Russia going to take control now, as Vladimir Putin has been re-elected as president? Others are saying all this is just going to put more pressure on Chiani and the alliance of Sahel states. Note that Niger has been going through some tough times in the past month. Niger missed a debt payment of 13.4 billion CFA in February, bringing the total default to some $519 million since a July coup and its suspension from regional financial markets. The West African Monetary Union Debt Management Agency UMOA said in a statement that Niger had failed to make a repayment of principal, which was due on February 16. It previously missed payments in August, November, January, and February. They also decided to quit coups and abandon the CFA franc. Now, they are ordering the American troops to leave. Concerns regarding the future of security and stability in the area have been raised by Niger's decision to order American troops to leave its territory. The action taken by the Nigerian administration is indicative of a wider trend in the Sahel region among nations looking to reinterpret their alliances and relationships, which includes reaching out to non-Western nations like Iran and Russia. The U.S. response has been somewhat subdued. No statements have been made in public regarding the issue. Nonetheless, U.S. officials have underlined how crucial the U.S. military's presence in Niger is to regional stability and counterterrorism efforts. Let us take note that the circumstances are still changing, and it is unclear how the withdrawal of U.S. forces would affect security in Niger and the larger Sahel. Whatever the case, we will be here to provide you with information as this unfolds. Do you think the American troops will leave Niger? Let us know what you think in the comments. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the New Tourist channel. Turn on notifications too, so you get notified whenever we upload videos like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in our next video.